It is always fascinating to come to a new museum to learn all the things that are inside it. We already know that we plan to come to a new museum that there will be hundreds of things that will amaze us and make us take hundreds of photos. Undoubtedly this place was no exception to this wonderful feeling of wonder, since inside the museum there are many fighter planes, original artifacts of different war conflicts, and many things related to aeronautics. The difference from this museum to other aerial museums that we have attended is that here there are ships in a museum section which have not been restored and show a very advanced state of deterioration, on the contrary hand the cosmetic design of the aerial ship. The main reason why we went to this museum was because on the day of our visit there would be an air show, talks with some war veterans, exhibition of historical topics related to the different eras of the different war conflicts. Personally, what struck me the most was the fact of seeing some groups of civilians who dressed as World War I soldiers and built a camp that was 100% assimilated to a camp of that time. Of course, I was never in a World War I camp of American soldiers, but from what I have read and what I have learned, the type of weapons and the uniforms they wore correspond. There were also military vehicles inside the museum and some stands where some articles related to aviation and more related to the time of World War II were exhibited. And as one of the attractions that caught my attention in the camps of World War I is that there was a military war tank, a Sherman war tank, which would later be put on display to show its mobility and its weapons of war. Now let's talk more about the history of the museum. The museum has many flying and static aircraft, along with several rare examples under restoration. Planes of Fame Air Museum was founded by Edward T. Maloney on January 12, 1957, in Claremont, California, to save historically important aircraft. At that time, it was called the Air Museum. A small group of volunteers, including future museum president Steve Hinton, set out to make the museum's aircraft flyable. In 1962, after the museum's collection of aircraft and memorabilia outgrew its original home, it moved to nearby Ontario Airport, California. In 1970, redevelopment of the airport at Ontario forced the museum to move again. The non-flyable aircraft became part of the Movie World, Cars of the Stars and Planes of Fame Museum in Buena Park, California, near Knott's Berry Farm, while the flyable aircraft moved to Chino Airport, about 30 miles, 48 kilometers away. This airport was formerly the home of Cal Aero Academy, an Army Air Corps facility that trained more than 10,000 pilots before the end of World War II. When Movie World closed in 1973, the name Planes of Fame was transferred, along with the static planes, to the flying collection at Chino. As more aircraft were restored and the collection grew, an additional display facility was opened in 1995 at Valle, Arizona. Located halfway between Williams, Arizona, and the south rim of the Grand Canyon, it houses more than 40 of the museum's aircraft, many flyable. The Chino facility opened its Enterprise hangar in 2002. Designed to resemble the hangar deck of a World War II aircraft carrier, it contains a number of items from the USS Enterprise, CV-6, donated by members of her crew and flight squadrons. It also houses many aircraft typical of those that served on the Enterprise during the war. The Chino facility was further expanded in 2004-08, adding 2 new hangars, new offices, a gift shop, library, and the Hands-On Aviation Youth Education Center. Display areas for jets and other aircraft of the Korean War, Cold War, and Vietnam War were added. In October 2009, another new hangar was dedicated, this one built by the 475th Fighter Group to store their memorabilia and house the museum's rare Lockheed. The museum announced plans to open a new location at the Santa Maria Public Airport. The museum's collection of Japanese aircraft is the largest of its type in the world. This collection includes the only authentic airworthy example of the Japanese Mitsubishi A6M0 fighter in the world, with its original Sakai engine and an Aichi D3A featured in the movie Tora. 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 Many other rare aircraft are maintained in flyable condition, such as a North American P-51A Mustang, a Boeing P-26A Peashooter, a Lockheed P-38J Lightning, and a Republic P-47G Thunderbolt. The story of the Planes of Fame Air Museum is the story of one man's vision. Ed Maloney knew that protecting our aviation history was important. At a time when very few shared his foresight, he understood the need to preserve, inspire, educate, and honor the legacy of what was then an industry less than half a century old. Today, his vision is reflected in the extensive collection of the Planes of Fame Air Museum, comprising aircraft and artifacts that might have been lost forever. His vision lives in the roar and thunder of rare warbirds flying overhead to the delight of millions. Moreover, his vision perseveres through the efforts of our volunteers and staff to make the experience of each visitor to the museum unique and memorable. It begins with our mission. The mission of the Planes of Fame Air Museum is to preserve aviation history, inspire an interest in aviation, educate the public, and honor aviation pioneers and veterans. On the surface, the mission is simple and straightforward. Four cornerstones: preserve, inspire, educate, and honor, form the basis of everything we do. Preserve. Our efforts at preservation have assembled one of the most extensive collections of rare and historic aircraft in the world. We take this a step further by restoring many of these aircraft to flight. These meticulous restorations have saved some of history's most precious aircraft. Putting them back in the sky allows new generations to appreciate our vast aviation heritage. These efforts continue on a daily basis at the museum. Inspire. Inspiration takes many forms. Our annual airshow lets thousands see and hear historic warbirds, vintage aircraft, and aerobatic performers take to the skies. Our Aviation Discovery Center provides hands-on experiences that help museum visitors gain appreciation for the wonder of flight. Through endeavors such as our youth programs, student art contest, and our college scholarships, our goal is to kindle an interest with young people to the enticing field of aviation. Educate. From guided tours, school field trips, and our stimulating monthly living history presentations, the educational efforts of the museum play an essential part of our ongoing activities. In order to better tell important stories from aviation's rich history, we're integrating many of our museum displays and graphic support with new levels of interactivity. Our research library and model room are knowledge centers dedicated to assisting in scholarly endeavors. Honor. We recognize that the intellectual and physical contributions of the men and women who built this industry, and the veterans who advanced it through their service and sacrifices, are worthy of honor. The museum presents its annual Achievement in Aviation award to individuals who exemplify the highest standards in aviation. Each month, our Kilroy Coffee Klatch says a simple thanks to veterans past and present. Our 475th Fighter Group Tribute, the Wright Flyer Display, and the Developing Korean War Memorial further honor major contributions to aviation's legacy. It has been this way since the very beginning. After nearly a decade of wheeling and dealing to collect his first 10 aircraft, Ed Maloney opened the museum on January 12, 1957. The site was a former lumber yard in Claremont, California. The sign out front read simply, "The Air Museum." There was no need to be more specific. At the time, no other air museums existed west of the Mississippi River. Ed continued to grow the museum, acquiring new aircraft, aviation artifacts, and memorabilia. By 1962, the Claremont facility had run out of space. At this same time, a new idea began to take shape: why not restore some aircraft to flight? To achieve this would require an airport-based location. In June 1963, the Air Museum relocated to Ontario Airport in Ontario, California. Occupying 2 hangars, the museum now had a home large enough to display the collection and room to conduct restoration work. A few years later, in 1970, a unique opportunity surfaced. The non-flying, static aircraft moved to Buena Park, California to become part of the Movie World, Cars of the Stars and Planes of Fame Museum. Housed in two large buildings on Orangethorpe Avenue, the Southern California attraction remained open until 1973. With the closure of Movie World, the next chapter in the museum's history saw yet another relocation. The Chino Airport, located on the border of the cities of Chino and Ontario, California, was an ideal location for the display of the ever-expanding collection, provided room for the important restoration work, and offered plenty of airspace for flying demonstrations. Another significant change occurred with the opening in 1974 of the Chino facility. The museum was given a new name. Combining the current, the Air Museum, with the Planes of Fame moniker, the museum hereafter would be known as the Planes of Fame Air Museum. Over the next 40-plus years, the museum would continue to flourish. New additions to the collection continued. Restoration work put several rare and unique aircraft back into the sky, including the Mitsubishi A6M50, the Boeing P-26 Peashooter, and the Northrop N9MB Flying Wing. The annual airshow commenced, thrilling the public with the sights and sounds of bygone eras. Film and television work, and several air racing victories by staff and volunteers brought added notoriety to the museum. By 1995, with the collection growing ever larger, particularly the number of flying aircraft, a second facility was opened near the southern rim of the Grand Canyon in Valle, Arizona. This facility would remain open until the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020, when it was closed to the public and converted into a facility focused on aircraft restoration. Chino remains the base of operations for the museum. 7 hangars house the collection with several additional buildings including the Aviation Discovery Center, the Research Library, the Model Room, and a small theater. Altogether, including structures and outside tarmac displays, the Chino location comprises a 14-acre campus. The collection now numbers close to 160 aircraft, and nearly a quarter of these fly regularly. In 2022, the museum signed a lease agreement at the Santa Maria Airport in Santa Maria, California. Groundbreaking began in 2023 on a multi-phase project that will create a substantial presence for the museum on 23 acres at this historic airport. Phase 1 is expected to be completed and open to the public by 2025. The Santa Maria expansion will allow the museum to put more aircraft on public display with 2 large museum campuses, one in Southern California and the other on the central coast of California. With our mission to guide us, and Ed's vision to lead the way, the museum flies on into a very bright future. Many of the museum's roughly 150 aircraft were built in Southern California, and about 30 are flyable. Others are under restoration in the full-time restoration facility. Monthly flights and annual airshows. The museum holds a monthly mini airshow around a certain theme, such as World War I aviation, experimental aircraft, Korean War aviation, airplanes in the movies, and naval aviation. Each mini airshow starts with one or more talks or seminars given by people involved with the featured aircraft, such as combat pilots, followed by a flight demonstration of 2 or 3 aircraft related to that day's theme. The museum flies all of its airworthy aircraft, as well as many other warbirds visiting from other museums or brought by private owners, during its annual airshow. This event is the largest gathering of warbirds in the western U.S. Many aircraft are rare or one-of-a-kind. Military vehicles. The Military Vehicle Corps, often referred to as the Motor Pool, is a small group within the Planes of Fame Air Museum. The military vehicles in their collection are primarily from World War II and are maintained and operated by a group of museum volunteers. These vehicles are used in parades, public events, e.g. marching through history, and World War II reenactments. The following vehicles are some of those that are on display at Chino. M4A1 Sherman tank. 1941 WC-54 Dodge ambulance. GMC CCKW. 475th Fighter Group. In the late 1990s, members of the 475th Fighter Group, Satan's Angels, established a permanent home for the artifacts, photographs, records and memories of their U.S. Army Air Forces unit, which recorded 562 victories, received 2 Presidential Unit citations, and produced 42 aces in the South Pacific combat area. It was the first all-Lockheed P-38 group and the only one formed overseas in Australia. Many people have donated time, skills and memorabilia to preserve the history and proud heritage of the many valiant men of the 475th. This new museum was dedicated in October 1997, at the expanding March Field Air Museum complex at the former March Air Force Base near Riverside, California, where the first test flight of the P-38 took place. The March Field Museum chronicles the history of U.S. military aviation since 1917. Legally known as the 475th Fighter Group Historical Foundation Incorporated, the museum was housed in a 1,250 square foot, 116 square meters, modern steel building reminiscent of a World War II military hangar. In 2005, the museum's board decided to merge the museum into the Air Museum Planes of Fame. As of 2015, a 3,600 square feet, 330 square meters, hangar at Planes of Fame was under construction for the 475th. To finish this video, we must fully appreciate the kindness of all the people in charge of this event, since they behaved very kindly and provided a lot of information regarding the history of the museum as well as the shows and all the planes that were on display. We also want to mention that we want to highly recommend this place to spend an incredible day, because if you are an aviation fan and have an interest in aeronautics, that place is definitely recommended for you. Walking through the hangars of this place to automatically transport to different times in which these flying machines were involved in military conflicts and survived them, this is the main reason to be able to observe them firsthand, since they are part of the history of humanity. Without a doubt, we will return to this place in the next aerial exhibition, and we will listen attentively to the talks that take place in this place regarding facts related to the military history of the United States of America, since from what I have read lately, I know that the shows vary between one and the other and the aerial ships are different. That are placed approves the day of the exhibition to AMA. The price of access to this place is fair, and within this place you will also find a wonderful gift shop and souvenirs related to the museum. You will also find some food trucks and some outlets of different fun to be more attractive on the day of your visit at special events. Without a doubt, the memory of having seen the Sherman tank will be forever engraved in the memory of my children, since I carefully explained to them the historical meaning of this war machine, and the simple fact of being in front of one amazed us all. Visit the main page of the museum so that you are updated on the next air shows. If you live near the area or simply have the great curiosity to come this wonderful place, I recommend you personally to do it without thinking about it, since time will pass quickly walking between historic warplanes and some other military vehicles.
that rotates it open so he can get in and out and insert here.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do it from outside.
No,
That makes for a crazy
Go
guy.
past.
Hold on,